try to be respectful and start this meeting on time. So I now call this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order at 7 p.m. Please call the roll.
Ms. Pearson?
Present.
Mr. Rollins? Ms. Muhammad? Mrs. McCulloch?
Here.
Mr. Siegel?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Ms. Stanford?
Here.
With 5 present, 2 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We'll now take a moment for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we start each board meeting, it bears reminding that the mission of the Rockford Public Schools is to collaboratively engage all students in a first-class education for a changing world. And before we go any further, thank you, Connor Childers. He's working behind the scenes to produce the board's broadcast via YouTube live stream and Comcast 20. I also wish to welcome SSAC student representative Jaware Zahula. Did I do okay?
Joaria
Sahula. And you're here from Auburn School, and we'll get to hear a little bit about your thoughts later.
Yes,
so thank you for being here with us. We're now at the petitions and communications portion of our meeting. When we invite the public to make comments, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees the right of citizens to petition their government, as well as provides for freedom of speech. Also, the Illinois School Code requires that there be a time at regular and special meetings for public comment. Thus, we are following those mandates during this petitions and communication portion of our agenda. The board will not respond to comments at this time. If it is appropriate, you will be contacted in a timely manner by staff in response to your question. Each speaker will be allowed no more than 2 minutes to address the board, and since we only have 2 speakers, you will receive that full 2 minutes. It's not appropriate to address individual board members or individual administrators or to discuss matters that would otherwise be confidential in such open meetings. If you look to the clock, it's on your left. You'll see 2 digital clocks. One shows the total time allotted to public comment, and one shows the total time for each speaker. We won't need 30 minutes with 2 speakers. So I am going to ask first Ricky Naylor, if you would. And please keep your masks on throughout the conversation, and it's not on. You'll probably have to turn a light on, sir. Thank you.
There it is. You ready?
Go.
Okay, when I watch these telecasts on TV, I know a lot of you board members keep complaining about us, making complaints about you guys, but what you guys fail to do is and look at and be honest about it. It's been 10 years, and you guys have tolerated excuse after excuses from this administration. Every year he comes back again. He come back again with another excuse about why these academic achievements are not going up, and then you accept the excuses year after year. So don't blame us, blame them. And at the same time, blame yourself, because you are the ones that's supposed to supervise those guys. You were elected to supervise these administrators, and you didn't do that, so they keep doing what you allowed them to do every year. So get that straight. Now, if one thing what you guys remember tonight is that you cannot change this city of Rockford without changing the state of education in this school district. I mean, this school district continues to deny the right of education for most of the students. This school is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was designed so that only a certain amount of students succeed, and you know what? Only a certain amount of students succeed. Now, if you're going to change that, then you have to change what you're doing. I mean, and also, you guys got a fundamentally flawed school system. You got a fundamentally flawed HR department. Everybody keep denying that it's not. And also, there's a culture of fear in the school district. People don't speak up here. They hold back because they know if they speak up, something's going to happen to them. And you can't do that in order. If you can't do that, if you expect to make changes. So, now, if I have to give you guys a grade right now, I would give the administration and this board an F. For what you've been doing for the last years, an F. Now, you can improve that grade, but right now, I'm giving you all an F.
Thank you for your time, sir. Our second speaker is Ellen Amer.
Hi, I'm your friendly local advocate for restorative justice and restorative practices. One of our core beliefs is that all human beings have a deep desire to be in good relationship. You already have some of this built into your 5-year strategic plan: improving communication, social emotional health and skills, internal trust and relationships. RJ can synthesize the very good standalone programs like anti-bullying, SEL, trauma-informed DEI, and more into a cohesive culture. But restorative practices are not a quick fix to student behavior or disciplinary issues, but rather a culture focused on relationships and high support for long-term impact. Restorative justice is about building systems and communities, addressing conflict and repairing relationships. But broken rules mean someone was harmed. A punitive mindset asks who broke what rule and the punishment they deserve. A restorative mindset asks what happened and why, who was harmed, and what would make it right. The focus on relationships and repair rather than rules and punishment may seem soft or ineffective. It's really a powerful way to create accountability. I'm on the board of Illinois Balanced and Restorative Justice. We work around the state, and trainings can be really helpful for some individuals, but a whole school approach is better. An entire district is ideal. We just started in Champaign, and we're so excited to build a cohesive restorative culture. I gave out a sheet that gives some results and examples of RJ in school. So thanks for your attention. I hope you'll look at that. I'm happy to answer questions and have discussions about this all day, any day. So I look forward to talking with you.
Thank you. And board members have those sheets in front of them. We're now at board member comments. Any of the board members have comments that they would like to make? Ms. Pearson.
Yes, thank you. I just want to acknowledge a few school principals. I had an opportunity to visit schools this past week, and I was at Kennedy, and I spoke with Principal Retman and Principal Stovall with Risa and Principal Malone at Washington. So collectively, I was able to obtain some really good information. I have to commend those for the continued efforts to come up with innovative ways to keep students in school and on their educational path. And as well as being an advocate for social emotional support. I want to specifically recognize Ms. Malone. I arrived and they were in the middle of recognition. And I had never seen such a group of kids so motivated and excited and eager and ready to learn than the group that I witnessed at Washington. And I think that Mrs. Malone deserves specific accolades for that effort. She did some research and she give a positive feedback and recognition to both students and teachers and staff, and that is to be complimented. She said something to me before I left, and she said, Mrs. Pearson, you can come without an invitation at any time, and you will find consistency in our school. And that speaks volumes. And so thank you to those specific principals. I have received many requests, and I don't have a problem visiting other sub-districts. Sub-District A is one of the largest sub-districts, and so be patient with me as I navigate to the various schools. Each school is important to us, and I want to continue to thank the community for your involvement. Things really are observed and taken note, and as times change, the family dynamics change, we must also change. And you may not see change as quickly as you desire, but that doesn't mean it's not in progress. So thank you, and to our school administrators.
All right, I don't see any other lights. So we would move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Jarrett, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you so much. For the first part of my presentation, we've had Joaria has attended now her third board meeting, and she is the January SSAC student representative, and I wanted to allocate a few minutes of the time for her to share her perspective on what she's learned over the first two board meetings and some of her personal experiences as a student in our district at Auburn High School. Joaria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Jarrett. Okay. Hello, I'm Joaria Zahorla, and I'm a representative from Dr. Jarrett's Student Advisory Council. I'm currently a senior at Auburn, which means I'm ending my 12-year journey as a Rockford Public School student. And my central goal as a part of the Superintendent Student Advisory Council is to help my school, my district, and my community reach their full potential. Over the last month, I've been able to attend the school board meetings and listen in to the executive decisions that are being implemented in our schools. My role here is to offer the student perspective to our board members, both the good and bad truth of what is happening. So it's been a really tough month of school at Auburn, especially with everything that's happened recently. Every day has been more confusing, challenging, and draining than the last. Students and teachers alike are looking for understanding and support. There's not one comprehensive, solvable issue that any of this can be blamed on. It's a combination of so many factors affecting our schools and lives at once. Students can't be expected to shed the issues of their personal lives when they enter the school doors. Stress and anxiety make their way into the classrooms, and it can greatly impact the quality of education given and received. The best advice that I can offer to the school board from the student perspective is to prioritize mental health for both students and teachers. During the last two meetings I attended, I was happy to hear about the district's plans to work with Rosecrans to provide these kinds of services to RPS students, as well as the implementation of excused mental health days. This use of resources is definitely a step in the right direction, and I hope to see its positive effects in the near future. However, this should not be the start and end of mental health resources available within the district. When we invest in the well-being of our students and teachers, we are investing in the improvement of Rockford overall. Our first line of defense against concerns within the schools should be support for those who are clearly struggling. Mental health cannot and should not be addressed in isolation from the schools. As a district and as a community, we need to prioritize support for mental health. I hope to leave RPS in 6 months knowing that mental health can be addressed without stigma for the people who are struggling. I hope my teachers and fellow students are able to receive help without sacrificing their educations or careers. And most importantly, I hope that I can be a part of the legacy of a district that supports their students and the creation of a prosperous future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joaria. And we will have a new representative joining us in the month of February. But Joaria, thank you so much for being here, and make sure you grab your tag on the way out, and we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting as well. But you've represented us and the board very well, and honored that you had the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you. Good job. I do really appreciate the board's elevation of student voice this year through these monthly presentations. We've also had some students that have come to board meetings, and I just want to build on those very powerful words about mental health to say that we do encourage students to come out and join us. There is a public comment section, and we will certainly prioritize student voice there, as well as through our student representatives with the SSAC. So thank you so much. I do have a presentation as well. I won't pretend that this is the highlight of my presentation after hearing from a student, but I do want to share some background. The board has continued to talk about what it's going to look like to determine how our district is performing and how our individual schools are performing. We call that our system-wide framework, and we've had numerous conversations about this. This is, I think, an attempt to really help us tangibly start to understand how this system will work. I want to remind the board and the community that our equity imperative is to create learning environments that work for all students and interrupt the predictability of student outcomes based on zip code. That is something we think ultimately defines our work in our community and our school district. What that looks like is ensuring all students have access to high-quality schools. You can see here if red and yellow represent schools that are underperforming. These are in no particular order here, but we keep going back to this image of converting this picture into a picture where all of our schools are improving, growing, and thriving, and that all students have access to high-quality education. We know we have work to do to get there. To speak specifically about what this accountability and continuous improvement system will look like, here is an example of the dashboard, and this is something I want to actually walk the board through some specific examples. You'll notice in the upper part, you can see there's the school scorecard. This is something prior to the pandemic we were doing on an annual basis, where if you consider schools on a 4-point scale, 3 points came for various measurements of quality instruction, and 1 point came for culture and climate. So we did that in 2018 and 2019, and obviously we have not been able to do that because of some of the metrics being interrupted during the course of the pandemic. Standards of practice is something we've newly added, and for this particular example, you can see in the purple the 8 standards of practice for elementary education. If the school scorecard looks at how schools are performing after the fact, these standards of practice are how the school is performing on commitments that we have made as a district to offer to all students at that level. And you can see these are the actual 8 standards that we've agreed to around quality instruction, quality relationships, and making strategic decisions. Now let's talk about how these 2 factors will be weighted together to create a cumulative score. What we are proposing, and the board will ultimately get to weigh in on this, but what we are proposing is that neighborhood schools in our K-12 environment, the majority of our schools, will be weighted 50% with how they do on that scorecard, things like test scores and growth and climate and culture, that 3-point versus 3 out of 4 point scale there. And the other 50% will be standards of practice. Are we doing and providing these guaranteed experiences for our students? You notice early childhood is proposed at 25-75, and that is because 75%, it's much more about the process of early childhood, because the developmental variance really has such a wide variety of outcomes there that it would be difficult to put a heavy emphasis on actual academic outcomes at that age level. Special programs have an increased autonomy, so there's less of a commitment to doing the district standards of practice, so it would be logical to take half of those standards points and move them in to make it 75-25, so much more accountability on the scorecard, with only 25% being the standards of practice. And then our charter schools ultimately do not have any requirement by nature of their design to adhere to any standards of practice. They are ultimately going to be evaluated 100% by how they perform on the school on their school scorecard. And so we have 3 schools that will be in that way. Here's what it looks like at the elementary level, and then you're going to get a written report to talk about how it's going to look in middle school and high school, and then we'll proceed to walk you through these examples over and over again so we can kind of get used to how this would look. So again, here's a much more detailed look of the way the scorecard works for elementary. You can see these are the indicators we're actually talking about. Of the 3 total points 0.8 of a point would be reading growth on MAP and IAR. 0.8 of a point, so now we're at 1.6 of 3, would be MAP growth on MAP in terms of math. Then we would go to reading proficiency, being 0.4 of a point for reading and math, and writing would be 0.4 and 0.2 respectively, growth and proficiency. You can see that collectively, 0.8, 0.8, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4, and 0.2 adds us up to 3 points, or 75% of the school scorecard. The climate and culture, you can see, adds up to 1 point, or 25% of the total. You'll see different metrics for high school and middle school. You'll see different metrics along the way. So this is something we introduced 18-19, and then subsequently had 2 consecutive missing years because there were no spring tests in 1920, and many of the indicators were missing during the 2021 school year as well. We believe the 21-22 school year, albeit very challenging, will serve at least as a starting point or a baseline year to reestablish our school scorecard. So again, the standards of practice then would make up the other 50% of the score. We have 3 big categories: quality instruction, quality relationships, and strategic decisions. We've talked about this for over a year now, and I want to actually show you what that would actually look like at the elementary level. There are 8 standards: 4 for quality instruction, 3 for quality relationships, and 1 for strategic decisions. These are commitments that we've made for common services that will be provided to students. These practices should be guaranteed, and schools will be evaluated for how these are delivered. So our reading program, which provides a balanced approach, Reading Horizon, students learn to read systematically through direct, explicit instruction. We have the opportunity to evaluate how an elementary school performs on that. You can see how that would apply down the line. Ultimately, here's an example of what that might look like if we were to fill it out. You can see the school scorecard being filled out hypothetically here. These are not actual scores for any particular school. And then we plugged in hypothetical 1 to 4 scores on each of the 8 standards of practice. And then you tie those 2 scores together to create a final score. Here's what it would look like on a summative basis, hypothetically. If you took a school that was doing really well on the school scorecard and had a 3.4 out of 4 and was doing even better on the standards of practice, that would be a 3.5. They would be on a 5-year track, which means they would have increased freedom and would have a longer time before their accountability renewal occurred. Moving to the second line, you can see a school that was really doing well on their results, but we're not providing the guaranteed standards of practice. That averages out to a 2.9, which would drop that school below a 3. A flip side to that would be, what if a school is really improving on their standards of practice, but the academic achievement has not caught up yet? That school with a 2.3 would be able to benefit from the improvement in the standards of practice. Now, over the long term, obviously we're going to be measuring standards of practice should eventually lead to improvement on the school scorecard. If we don't see that improvement, then we would have to revisit if we are committing to the right standards of practice. So this will be something the board will have to look at on an annual basis to see. Over time, we shouldn't see a school continue to do really well on the standards of practice and then really badly on the scorecard. But there are many of our schools that it's going to take some time to get that there. And then finally, the last example is a low score, but a more middling standard of practice. And you can see you'd have to have a really exceptional standard of practice to bring up a really low score there. Obviously, there's many scenarios we could put in place, but the idea here is that schools will eventually be evaluated not just for their lagging performance on state tests and other things. We're going to be looking at things like growth, climate and culture, and a very nuanced set of metrics on the school scorecard, but that will also be supported by how we do on these guaranteed commitments that will be supported through an improvement process. This is not just a desire to sort and select schools. This is a commitment to supporting our schools on their journey of continuous improvement. Now, you're going to see a lot more of this moving forward. On the 28th, you're going to get something similar to this in writing to repeat what happens, but we'll substitute out the elementary and put it in middle and high school. You'll get that in writing. On the 8th, we're going to show you, because the charters, early childhood, and special programs have different than a 50-50 ratio, we're going to actually walk you through those again, but we'll repeat some of these same slides so we can see that. Then starting on March 1st, we're going to walk you through this accountability, and this continuous improvement mindset is not a one-way street. The district office has to create conditions where our schools can all be successful in order to achieve that vision of all of our schools, regardless of zip code, being successful. So principals and assistant principals get the opportunity to evaluate departmental performance as well as how the district as a whole provides on 8 guaranteed standards of service. We took a survey, and this is our first dry run from our principals and assistant principals. We're going over that data at the principals meeting tomorrow, and moving forward, we're going to be bringing that back to the board to show you how we did on our first dry run, and you'll see that we have work to do as a district office for sure in some key areas. We do need to spend some time either in March or at the latest in April, and I've talked to Board President McCulloch, carve out some time on a Saturday to do a strategic retreat. We have a strategic planning process that is underway, and we really want to spend time refining our work and doing that. So I've asked Mrs. McCulloch to work with Mrs. Fromm to pull the board and find some time for a Saturday retreat. March 29th is when we're scheduled to talk about school and quality improvement cycles. This is where we do the work in schools to provide coaching and support on those standards of practice. Then the board is going to have some conversations about what does it mean to have a 3, 4, or 5-year track for a particular school. And by the time we get to November of 2022, after all the dust has settled, and assuming that the pandemic does not prohibit full exposure to academic testing for the 21-22 school year, we plan to have the baseline data for all of our schools. So a lot of work to do, and this is a nice roadmap here to see what's coming. There will be a combination of board reports, retreats, as well as lots of work at future board meetings to fully finalize the system. But again, the reason we're doing this goes back to this. We want to make sure that all learning environments in our schools interrupt the predictability of student outcomes based on zip code. That is not our current reality, and the focus is how do we, through a 3, 4, or 5-year plan of support, get every single school in our district from red and yellow to that all green and blue scenario that we're talking about based on this system. We think this gives everyone in the district a very clear role in helping to do that and firmly plants our focus on that work. Thank you.
I know you're all excited about Saturday retreat coming back. Questions about the framework and what Dr. Jarrett's presented? I would ask about the standards of practice under quality relationships where student belonging. It says it regularly promotes a sense of belonging. I mean, is that subjective? Is that a checklist? Is that how would they determine that?
Turn that over to Mrs. Demmin.
This is self-reported on the SEL screener that all students are given in grades 3 through 12. And there's an indicator there around student belonging, and so we have metrics by grade level.
Okay. And when is it will we see these populated with whatever you're presenting to the principals tomorrow, that particular
standards
report?
of service, which is the principal and assistant principal's opportunity on behalf of their faculty and staff to evaluate the district office, is what you'll hear from us in March. You will see these fully populated for schools in our district in November of 2022, although hopefully we'll have some stuff before that, but that's when we know we can count on the state to have all of the finalized data for the IAR and other state assessments.
So on your section where scorecard 50%, standard 50%, that was just an example as well. Slide 11.
Slide 11.
Because you say prior to that, you know, for example,
oh, yes, this one. These are just hypothetical examples of how the math would work together in a 50-50 scale. And so when we do future presentations, we'll show you how the math works differently if we're doing a charter school, for example, or where it would be 100%, it would be all school scorecard, or in an early childhood where it would be only 25% scorecard, 75% practice. So we'll keep showing you how the math works differently. But for middle school, high school, and elementary schools that are neighborhood schools and are not in any kind of a special program, we are proposing to the board that it would be 50-50.
And the accountability score, the cutoffs for 5443, is that a conversation that you're going to have with the board, or are those already been determined?
They have not been determined, and in fact, we have projected April 26th for a time to talk about what that would look like.
Okay, so to come up with, so when you talk about the tracks, I figured you were going to talk about what happens when you get on one of those tracks, but determining who falls in one of those tracks. I mean, if you have a 3.5 right here, you're on a 5-year.
We will have a recommendation for the board, but I think it's going to be important to look at the distribution of the scores and to determine what we think is the right approach. And so we really want the board to weigh in on both the cut concept, but also what it means, what kind of supports the board wants to provide for 3-year schools, which may need the least amount of support, that are performing at the highest level, all the way to, or 5-year schools, excuse me, I was saying it backwards. 3-year schools would need the most support and would need the most frequent feedback.
Did I just hear you say it will depend on the distribution of scores, that we won't know until November, but we're going to talk about the tracks in April? So how does that happen?
So we are going to start with talking about what kind of supports we want to provide first, and then we will spend some time, we can look back at where schools were in 2018 and 2019 to inform our decision on the school scorecard, and we may have some preliminary data at that point to see how schools are performing on the standards of practice. So we'll have some limited information, and then we're going to have to determine from there kind of how to do this. But I think the most important decision the board has to make is going to be what kind of supports we want to provide to a 3-year school that needs the most support, all the way to a 5-year school, which may need a little less support.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Jarrett.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move on to the action items that proceeded through the Performance and Monitoring Committee. Our first item is 5A. Is there a motion and a second to approve item 5A, which is a resolution providing for the issue of not to exceed $70 million in general obligation refunding school bonds, Series 2022, for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement with Stifel Nicholas and Company, Incorporated, in connection with the proposed sale of said bonds.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Discussion, questions, because this is a little different than what we talked about. Does anybody need an explanation? Was that a yes?
Yes, please explain the differences between what was previously presented.
Mr. Brown, would you be the one doing that?
I can do that. So the thing that's a little bit different than what was talked about back in November was actually trying to sell the bonds today and then deliver the results of the sale today at the board meeting, along with the parameters agreement that would be signed by the board. The big difference came with the volatility in the financial markets over the last 4 weeks, and the Fed actually deciding that they were going to have monetary policy meetings today and tomorrow. And Stifel's recommendation not to actually enter the market to try and sell the bonds today, but actually wait until after the Fed meeting on wraps up on Wednesday to actually enter into the market. And so they were just worried about potential volatility in the marketplace. I did have a chance to talk with them at 2:30 this afternoon. They had 2 other school districts that decided to go ahead and put their bonds in the market today, and they had a very difficult time in the market today. So I think it was a good recommendation by Stifel to actually wait and try and sell the bonds. Most likely it'll be Thursday or Friday of this this week. If not, it for sure will be Monday or Tuesday next week, and then we'll be able to present the results of the sale on February 1st. But it really just had a lot to do with the market conditions right now.
Mr. Connor?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, was it that this other school district had a problem getting offers, or was it the rate?
Yeah, it was both. They had trouble actually getting offers on the bonds, and the rate that they entered the market with ended up being, as a result of not having a lot of offers, the rate ended up actually being higher than what they thought it was going to be. Yeah. The market was just too thin.
And by the end of the week, though, what indicators would we or Stifel be looking for to make the conditions better for us to implement this?
Yeah, I think a lot of it they're hoping is the Fed will come out with minutes from the meeting on Wednesday afternoon, and I think just knowing exactly what the course of action is going to be in the Fed, they thought would settle the markets down enough where at least things would stabilize a little bit.
Okay. Because I know the Fed was really looking not just at rates, but the amount of equity they're putting into the marketplace, right? So there was two decisions that can affect rates, how much they're going to buy, and then the rate itself. So I assume they're looking at both.
Yep, they are. Yeah, and the other nice thing about the following days on Thursday, Friday this week, and then Monday, Tuesday next week, there's very few other new issues that are coming to the market. So the issues that are going to be coming into the market should be more attractive because there's not going to be a lot of supply. So they're hoping that will make the people that are in the market buying be more competitive with the rates as well.
Okay, and would we change at all how we're sizing it or anything else about the actual factors of the bonds? We're just going to keep the amount the same. All those factors are going to be the same.
Correct. Yep. Okay. The only thing was really the timing of the sale.
Okay.
So there's no actual date on this resolution that you have to have them sold by? Is that correct? Am I missing it? Maybe I am.
That's just the authorization to sell. In paragraph 8, you'll see that by the board giving or passing the resolution tonight, it actually gives the board president then the ability to do it on a date other than today's date, which is the date. I do believe there is an end date in there by which action would need to be taken. I don't recall the date off the top of my head.
Is there any scenario that we would choose, our representatives with Stifel and Nicholas would choose not to sell the bonds?
I think there could be a scenario which would occur with. I think a lot of it would have to do with, just not getting enough offers in on the sale of the bonds. And I think then we'd probably have to make a decision on whether we really wanted to wait until probably September and then get in that current refunding window and not try and do this advanced forward refunding that we're talking about right now. That would be the most likely scenario. The other scenario that could play out would be to do a taxable refunding, not necessarily an advanced tax-free refunding like we're talking about, but we'd really have to see what the markets were going to be. Right now, to do an advanced refunding like we're talking about, there's about a 5 basis point per month premium that gets built into the rate. So the fact that the bonds won't actually be closed on until November means that there's probably about 50 to 55 basis points that's going to get put into this transaction on the overall interest rate. And really, rates could move that much really between now and November. So really, it's a decision, do we want to just go ahead and try and get the transaction done now, try and lock in these savings of roughly $6 million, or take interest rate risk and not do anything until November when rates could actually end up being higher than this. So I think that's really kind of the decision right now. We'll know by February 1st whether we really want to go ahead and move forward with the transaction. And, that'll be the call that will be made at the time when they sell the bonds. So we did have a pre-pricing call today as well, and the market still looks okay. It's not great. It's not like it was in November when the board originally reviewed this transaction, but there's no telling what's going to happen over the next 3, 4, 5 months. The Fed will probably start to raise rates in March. Probably will be at least a quarter of a point, maybe more. And I think that you'll see at least 1 or 2 more beyond that by November. So it's, I wish we had a crystal ball, but we don't.
I wish we had 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But here's where we're at. Mr. Connor.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, if we have the right market conditions, I assume that Steve will do the math and then send that to the board president so she'll know the monetary impacts of what we're talking about, the difference.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's call the roll on the motion for 5A, please.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 absent.
Thank you. So we're now on to our second item, which is the 2023 preliminary budget request. I think, who's going to share that with us? It looks like Mr. Zediker. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. I will have 2 different presentations tonight for the board. We will go over the preliminary FY23 budget for human resources, which would include talent development and accountability. Once that presentation is over, then if there are any questions on that budget, then we will shift over to our Fund 11 presentation, which is our health insurance, and all that goes into that. So we're going to bifurcate those two presentations tonight. So with human resources, we certainly align with Goal 4 quality staff. And as I will go through the next couple of slides, I have broken down the different departments within HR so that the board can get a sense of how those departments are structured. So here you will see the executive team for human resources, which includes Diane Alt, the Executive Director of Talent Development, Ellen Schubert, who is the Director of Allocations and Compliance, Sarah Jeske, Executive Director of Human Resources, Tanel Barnes, Director of Benefits, and Brooke Peterson, who is our Senior Manager of Accountability. This slide just breaks down a little bit further what we would call our core human resources team, which is talent acquisition, human resource generalists, as well as our HRIS. Here we have our accountability team. This is our allocations and compliance team. Our benefits team. And then finally, our talent development team. So some highlights from the different departments within human resources and kind of their focus over the last course of the year and as we continue into FY23. Our talent acquisition team really is taking a look at and really enhancing our processes around posting and placements and job offers. Certainly in this market, we want to make sure we're being as accurate, timely, and with great customer service as we're engaging potential new employees. They also perform all of our new hire appointments as employees get welcomed into the district. Talent development team really has shifted our onboarding of new employees to a virtual. Received some really great feedback from employees on that virtual onboarding, where they do get board policy, mandated trainings, updates, depending on what job classification that you have. We are continuing with our professional growth with our pathways for professional learning, university partnerships, and continue with additional support for teachers through our PAR program and our new teacher mentoring. Our accountability team monitors district priorities, through the PDSA process, our academic return on investment, our AROI, the implementation of the system-wide framework, our school scorecard, as well as employee engagement and school quality surveys. And finally, benefits continues to focus on our health and dental, our wellness within our programs. We are the point of contact for our retirees, as well as leave of absence, focusing on work comp, long-term and short-term disability, as well as our 457 and 403B optional retirement plans. So as we look at this slide, this is a combination of what we consider the 580 budget or core HR, as well as talent development and accountability. So this is a combination of all three. As you can see in there, we are up from FY22 to FY23 of just a little over $88,000. You see some decreases in purchase services of over $75,000. You will see through the presentation a lot of that has to do with our accountability team as we looked at strategic planning this year and not having to bring that contract forth for next year. If we look at just the 580 budget or core human resource, you can see we do have an increase with our salaries and benefits. We have a slight increase in purchase services with a decrease in supplies, with an overall increase from FY22 to 23 of just under $118,000. As we look through the contracts within human resources, many have stayed flat or have some relative increases, and those are all contractual as we are engaged in multi-year contracts. You will see that there is Burke Consulting Group, an increase by $4,000. We are contracting with the Burke Consulting Group to do some succession planning, as well as continued leadership development for a couple of cabinet members. So we have increased that total amount by $4,000. You can see we are up by just a little over $7,500 with those contracts. There is one new request that I am submitting to Cabinet to go through our process, and that is a benefits coordinator. As we look at our processes and procedures within benefits and realizing that benefits is anywhere from a $60 to $70 million business, adding this coordinator will assist in the efficiency and accuracy of the implementation of our health benefits. This individual will allow for more cross-training, benefits processes and procedures, as well as lead the collaboration with our IS and IT department. We really have put an emphasis on creating EDI feeds or electronic data integration feeds to our vendors. And a lot of the times we get billed on our rosters and the accuracy of the employees on that. And so adding somebody to work directly with ITIS as we continue to go through the EDI feeds with all of our vendors will really round out our benefits team and through audits and efficiencies eventually save our district some money. As we look at talent development, you can see that really the only increase in our talent development budget is through salaries and benefits. The rest of the budgetary items have stayed flat. We have just a few contracts. A couple of those are to be determined depending on situational needs that we may have as a district for both facility rentals or any consultants for professional learning. And then we have our Public School Works, which is our state mandated training software. There are no new requests for talent development. Then as we look at our accountability budget, again, the large decrease there in purchase services can be related to our strategic planning partner for FY22, which we do not need to continue on for FY23. So you can see an overall variance there of a reduction of almost $72,000 in the accountability budget. They have just a couple of contracts, our K-12 Insight for engagement and parent survey, district management group for ongoing support with our academic return on investment and PDSA consulting, and then again that Insight education group for strategic planning, which is $0 for FY23. We did want to show the board that the ECRA contract, which is grant funded out of Fund 18, is still there, but is going to fall under the purview of the accountability team as we combine our system-wide framework with our scorecard, and so that they will oversee that contract. So this is a flat dollar amount, and again, not out of Fund 10, but Fund 18, but wanted to show the board where that contract will fall. And there are no new requests for accountability. And really the return on investment is continuing from the HR lens to assist the district with recruitment and retaining and quality staff. We want to continue to look at our professional development and how we impact our staff with that. Continue to gain efficiencies and implement and monitor district accountability initiatives. And before moving into the health insurance fund, I would certainly take any questions from the board.
Mr. Connor.
Yeah, two questions. One is about the benefits coordinator position itself, and then the second is the return on investment question, especially around the gain efficiencies. So on the actual benefits coordinator, is that essentially somebody that has an HR background but is also technically oriented? Because I assume that they will be looking, you said, data handoffs and all that kind of thing, and usually that's fairly detailed technical work, as well as the impact on the processes themselves, which I assume, to the second question, is that the finance department would come up with the ways, the actual metrics themselves and the ways to actually measure that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're finalizing the job description as part of the process in terms of some of those skills and characteristics, but they certainly would need to have a technical aspect about them. As we look at auditing those new electronic data feeds, prior to some of these new EDI feeds that have gone through, everything was very manual. And so we came across mistakes, whether that was removal of employees or not adding, which cost with time, money, and energy. And so as we think about this position, it certainly would have some experience within HR, but would have technical. We do want somebody that understands some of those processes and from a software perspective as well.
Yeah, in terms of the EDI, somebody actually has to do the work. So is that Mr. Bartel's group? Is that somebody from the outside?
We work directly with somebody in Mr. Bartel's group, and so this would just kind of create a tighter collaboration on any kind of back and forth with those rosters for accuracy, because every vendor has a little bit different specification.
Yeah, sure.
And so having somebody that's that direct connect with that knowledge will support that process.
And maybe this is almost more Mr. Bartel, but do we have people with that kind of experience? Especially EDI is actually a kind of a specialized skill set, because I assume we're doing this with our current systems, and that the current systems have their own standards, so you've got to know that kind of thing, going into it.
So we have a particular individual on our staff that has done this work previously with the county and has vast experience in creating those connections. And really coordinating with this benefits coordinator will be helpful, because we'll create the connection for the uploads and the automated feeds. But a lot of time with these errors, we have to rely on the HR team and benefits coordinator to be able to help us define some of that stuff. So we do have significant experience, and it's been with one particular employee, and then we've got some training that's happened as well.
It would imply, though, that you're going to have some data quality checks. I mean, usually that's at the heart of an EDI. So this individual has background in data quality and those kinds of measures? Yes, they do. Yeah, the individual that is actually doing the work has been doing this a little over 25 years at various different locations. You're talking about EDI for 25 years? That's correct, yes. Okay. I think the only thing I'd say is that, which is it eSchool stuff? Is that the
a lot of it is actually Business Plus, because
Business
it's on the business side of it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm assuming that we have some expertise. The only thing I would say is I'm assuming that the benefits coordinator would be a part of that whole requirement side, so that you've got somebody with enough HR background to make sure that they're really watching over. I mean, if we're doing this to ensure that we have fewer mistakes, I'd want to make sure, I mean, we're adding a position, and I mean, my one comment on this is, are you comfortable that this is a long-term position,
Absolutely.
benefits coordinator? All right.
Yes.
So that I would assume that that individual will work on process improvement across the board as well, so they'll have a relationship with, I can never remember the Brooks department is, but I mean, okay.
Yep.
All right.
And working closely with finance as well.
I was just, yeah, that was my other thing.
This position has been discussed from department to department because it'll be certainly impactful on just more than just benefits.
Sure. Yep. And do we have anybody internally that we're considering for the benefits coordinator?
Haven't gotten that far. We want to kind of present this and then go through the process of building the job description and then going through the application process.
Okay. That's it. I think the one thing I'll point out, especially for the finance side, is that if we're going to be on the hook for the gaining efficiencies, we need to see that as a net result because we're adding staff specifically for that position, right? So,
Mr. Siegel?
Thank you. On slides 16 and 17 in the salaries and benefits, you show a positive variance. For some reason, I had in my head on slide 17, you said the variance is for a new hire, or was I mistaken on that? I guess I'm wondering if those salaries and benefits variances are for wage increases or additions of new people.
No, that would be wage increase and benefit cost increase. And also there is, between myself or other departments, as you see budgets come forth in the next couple of weeks, it all could depend on also incumbents who left at a certain salary and the people who replaced them. So we're always going to see a little bit of variance as we deal with people.
Got it. Thank you.
Ms. Pearson.
Thank you. I have a question back to the benefit coordinator. So currently the management of the benefits, you said, is manually.
A lot of the processes working with our vendors up to this point had been a lot of manual work with uploading rosters for our various vendors like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Express Scripts, and other partners.
So the benefit coordinator, and I see that you have the director of benefits, senior manager benefits, benefit specialist, so you have two benefit specialists. How can we use what we have, who we have, to be, how can we merge the benefit specialist with the roles of benefit coordinator?
Yeah, I would say the level of expertise that would be needed for the work that we're proposing, our current benefit specialists don't have. They have a skill set where they are working on a week-to-week basis in terms of some of the additions of individuals, employees to our plan, removing plan, answering questions, taking other phone calls. One is an IMRF representative, so then she pays attention to any kind of movement with IMRF if an employee qualifies, doesn't qualify. So we have job duties that are very laid out for each individual at this time, and they are maxed out in terms of what they accomplish in a week. And so we took that into consideration as we thought about adding this additional position.
Okay, when you get an opportunity, can you forward me the job description of the benefit specialist?
Sure,
and the,
absolutely. Yep.
Thank you. Benefit coordinator. Thank you.
I have a question, and it's just my understanding. So you broke the budget, pages 16 and 17, you broke it into two I mean, I don't understand why we don't just have a full budget for your department. Why are there two different slides for that?
So slide 15 would be the full overall budget budget for my overall department and the departments that report up through me.
You mean 16?
Nope, slide 15.
I was going to say.
Oh, I apologize. I'm looking at the slide here. Yep. Okay. So the slide here where it has human resources, talent development, accountability, that would combine all of the departments that report up to me that would feed into this budget.
So that's everyone. And then you took out what for slide 17?
So then the next slide, I took accountability and talent development out. So this would be just kind of the core HR that would be funded through what we would call my 580 budget out of Fund 10.
So is benefits?
The benefits people are in this budget, but a lot of the benefits costs for contracts are in a different fund, so they wouldn't be represented here, and that's why we present Fund 11 separately.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are we ready to move on to health insurance fund? Okay. So our health insurance obviously aligns up with Goal 4, quality staff, as well as Goal 5, fiscal and operational stewardship. To start off the presentation, we want to take a review of the 2020-2021 health plan costs and summary. This is a presentation that's given every year to the board. So as we look at the historical summary for our plan, you can see we go back to 2017 on a per employee per year cost. FY21 did end at a little over $16,000, which was approximately 6% higher than the year prior. But you can see over the duration of the year since 2017, the fund has actually performed very well. We've increased costs by just about 11%, which is an average of 2.8 per year. Really, when we look over that same time frame, expected trend was anywhere between 5.5% to 6%. And so this slide just really illustrates visually year by year that per employee per year cost versus the 6% trend. Some items of note from 2021. The number of claims over 50,000 increased from that prior year by 8.7%. Those total dollars for the claims over 50,000 increased by over $1 million compared to the prior year. Pharmacy claims did increase by 2.3%, but the good news is the expected increase and trend was closer to 8 to 9%. So our pharmacy claims actually performed better than what we anticipated because we know pharmacy is always a danger, and so to see that lower cost was a surprise and a positive one at that. We did see COVID claims much higher, and I'll explain here on the next slide as we compare what those COVID claims were broken out to be. So as we take a look at COVID claims from March of 2019 to June of 2020, they totaled just a little over 38,000. When we take July of 2020 to June of 21, that total jumps up to a little over 1.8 million. So as we kind of look forward to 2022, there's a couple of things that we do need to pay attention to. Certainly, inflationary pressures the market. So trend is expected to be higher than in the past. High-cost medications are going to continue to play a part in potential cost increases, so we're always going to have to pay attention to that. We do have a few potential of some high claimants that are out in our plan, and COVID is still going to continue to likely drive some of our claims. We were able to negotiate with our stop loss, so a flat premium, which is a benefit to us. So there was no increased premium for the coverage of our stop loss. So as we look at some continued cost control measures, we still continue with our wellness initiatives and our screenings, health risk assessment, our points program with our wellness committee. Our RX contract, or our prescription contract, did drive some really strong rebates for us, so over $2 million received in rebates, which is a nice bump into the fund. And then we continue to partner with our Express Script for programs to continue to try to control some of our prescription costs. And we are having a good turnout so far with screenings. At this time, that number has actually increased to a little over 1,440 employees participating in the biometric screening. And then on the board docket for later for potential approval is the MyStrength Complete. If we are able to add that into our benefits package for social emotional, this really is going to help adults in terms of removing some access barriers for mental health. It will improve overall services to our employees, and we hope that access to mental health 24/7, 365 will lead to some improvement on absenteeism and then overall positive impact on other health claims. So as we look at claims history and projection, you can see from the 2022 budget, we did budget originally at $45 million. As we took a look at current trend for 2022, we did move that projection up to a little over $51 million to end fiscal year 22. And then as we look at our fiscal year 23, we are expected and going to budget a slight increase up to the $52.7 million. So as we look at the fund itself with the details of the contracts in our health insurance fund, you can see the increases for both the Blue Cross Blue Shield as well as Express Scripts. And you can see a decrease in the 403B administration, which went through board this fall. There are several asterisks for some of these contracts. If you take a look at Allied, Blue Cross, as well as our active health management, those are all contracts that we're reviewing right now for market or to RFP to take a look at is there a better provider for this service, as well as our leave of absence. So those are under review as we present today. So those potentially could come through to board as an RFP in a different vendor, or it may be best that we find the information to renew with the current vendor for this service. So you can see the overall health fund as we take a look from FY22 to FY23. We're showing about $7.7 million increase, which again you can see a majority of that is taken up with the increase for Blue Cross as well as Express Scripts. And we've taken a look at return on investment for our health insurance fund. Want to continue to try to mitigate healthcare costs the best we can. Continue to provide quality benefits, provide that customer service for our retirees, as well as continue to look at being a wellness conscious and having a group of employees who are wellness conscious. Questions?
Mr. Connor.
Yeah, as you look at the numbers, there's a couple places where you've said pharmaceutical, and I assume that whenever you say pharmaceutical, really that's where the specialty is okay. Because I know that's one of the ones that we've really looked at very carefully over time.
Yep.
So I would assume you'll still come back to us with that part.
Yeah, and we did an audit last year, and I reported out to the board specifically on our pharmaceuticals, and that really helping to drive some of those rebates that we had and to make sure that our partner was performing. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that was good.
Yep.
And obviously, overall, I mean, let me just say, for those of you who don't follow the markets, the fact that we're so far under trend is incredible. I mean, most organizations are just the reverse, so that has been a success. I think the question is on the increases for the Blue Cross Blue Shield. If that were anybody else, would that number be the same?
Yeah, we've gone to market the last couple of times for Blue Cross. And the level of discounts that we have in our area up to this point, and we'll continue to look to market to see if there are any other providers. But the level of discounts right now have just been the most beneficial for the district. And so, but they are one that we ask our partners at Gallagher to continue to review each time.
Right.
Yep.
But I guess the point is that there's a large increase, but you could put anybody's name there, and it would be essentially the same. I think that would be the point.
Absolutely.
And that is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, which is out of Chicago, which really overall has a pretty good market reputation. So that would be my one comment there. It's a huge part of it, but if I remember correctly, when we've gone to market, it's both our approach, but we've had some core management that have really helped us keep the number down. So
I'd like to take a lot of credit for it, but it's not me.
This is, but I mean, I think it's fair to say, and for the public watching, that as you go through and you see these large increases, I mean, that's the nature of the health insurance. And really, Blue Cross Blue Shield, if I might say so, again, has a pretty good reputation. So
absolutely, absolutely.
Mr. Siegel.
Thank you. You brought it up, and so there's repeating. The benefit of the teledoc mental health benefit is something that I think we just need to say every time that we can, every time it comes up. This is going to be, I hope, something that's very heavily used by our staff, and that they really reap the real benefit of this. And there's obviously no shortage of need in our mental health state. So I'm very glad that this is something that we are adding for our employees to take advantage of. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Pearson.
Yes, I just have a quick question in regards to the mental health or the teledoc. I don't know, just for clarity. So the $40, is that, I saw $40 for consultation.
Yeah, that would be the copay essentially for the consultation. That would be the medical side of it. That we already had in our contract for the telemedicine.
So the telemedicine copay for virtual visit is $40?
So it depends. So if you're on the PPO 1000, you would pay the copay for that. And if you're on the high deductible health plan, you would pay a separate copay for that visit. And then the district would pick up the rest of it within the plan.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So on slide 35, and I think this is what you were talking about with the specialty drugs, maybe, Mike, so claims over $50,000 increased by $1,043,000. Those are we've had in the past a group of claimants who had just really high-end medications that were, and that's what we're seeing in there?
That could participate and contribute to that. There are other diagnoses that have those large claims, cancer diagnoses and all of that goes along with cancer, whether that's a medication, but also the procedures in the hospital. So those types of ailments and diseases would contribute to those claims that are over $50,000.
Well, there were just a couple way out there, real high-end ones. Are we still experiencing that? I mean,
yep, that's a great question, and I have Michael here from Gallagher to be able to tell us that.
Half to make it worth your while.
That's right.
You guys have waited so patiently. And you're, we're patting you on the back for our good numbers, so thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. We always, every year, an organization your size is going to have large claimants out there. Right now, our largest for the past year came in at about $750,000, and then there was a couple that were $500,000 or lower, and then kind of tirades down from there. Just remember that any person who has claims over $350,000 through the course of the calendar year, you are reimbursed back those dollars from our stop-loss carrier. And so there's been reimbursements that have come back for that individual as well. Our largest claimant for this year, or for this past year, is no longer on the plan. They came off the plan earlier last year.
Wow. And is that $750,000, is that primarily in pharmaceuticals?
No.
No. Okay, so that's all the care as well.
Right, that's all the care. That's everything all in.
Okay.
So, and actually right now we don't have any, knock on wood, we don't have any enormous prescription drug costs out there on any one individual. Our prescription drug plan is running really, really well. So,
and I just, you guys maybe all get it, but the stop loss, that really helped me put it in perspective, that if we get to a certain, and you said it's 300 and what thousand?
350,000.
So at 350,000, anything after that is paid not by the district, but out of our insurance, the stop loss piece?
The district pays up front, and then those dollars are reimbursed back to you from our stop loss carrier.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you. That is helpful. I'm glad you were here.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to tell us? We're doing well. The COVID is going to continue to gift over the next year, and then long COVID as well, I'm sure.
We could certainly see that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I see no other green lights, no other questions on that. All right. Oh, Ms. Pearson, thank you.
Yes. So, Mr. Zedeker, on 5 or 6I, let's go back there. Oh, I can wait. Oh, wait a minute. Well, I just ask it because I've already asked. So the $40, there's a $55 per consultation. The district responsibility is $40. So the employee is only responsible for $15.
Yeah, I'll actually turn that over to Tanel Barnes-McNeil, our Director of Benefits. She's much more intimate with the program. She can answer your question.
Okay.
Hello, you are correct.
Repeat what's correct, please. Oh, you have to keep your mask on.
I'm sorry. That the district is responsible for $15 copay out of the $50 consultation fee that is charged.
For the teledoc?
Yes, for the teledoc. I'm sorry, medical virtual appointments.
The district or the individual?
This is different.
Because this ends up saying that the district is on the hook for 40 of the 55, and you just said they were on the hook for 15. I didn't realize 40 and 15 make 55, but how much does the district pay? How much does the individual pay?
Well, it's my understanding that the individual pays the $15 and we're on the hook for the 40. So I must have misheard and I apologize.
Mr. Gallagher is shaking his head yes.
Okay, that's clarity. She just flipped it. Thank you very much.
Repeat it one more time.
Okay. The district is responsible for $40 of the $50 charge per consultation fee for the medical virtual visit.
So actually, it's 55.
55. Not 50.
Okay.
Okay. 55. 15 goes to the employee. They pay that, and then the district pays 40.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you for that.
Oh, no problem. Sorry.
Anybody else with a question? Okay. You have any more to present to us?
That's it for me.
Good evening. I'm going to present our Equity Department preliminary budget for FY23. Our goal, of course, is to provide quality staff for our entire school district. We have added one more member to our team. We had a half-time member, but now we have a full-time position, so we are small but mighty. And here are some Equity Department highlights: university partnerships, our education job fairs, minority teacher recruitment, these housing incentives, hiring incentives, paid student teaching, equity training, coaching, and support of the school-wide, district-wide staff and initiatives. So this is our budget for FY22 and 23. You'll notice for salaries and benefits there is a variance because, again, we had a half-time position who is now, she starts in about a week. She is now a full-time position, so that's the reason why we have that $12,000 variance.
Which position was that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but
that's okay. It's another recruitment coordinator. She isn't on the chart yet because she hasn't started yet. You want me to go back?
No, I'm looking at the chart. I was wondering which one of those it was.
No, she isn't listed yet because she hasn't started.
Okay. Mm-hmm. A little phantom in there. Okay.
So we have an increase in $140,000 as far as our purchase services. Supplies, there is an increase of $2,000. And in other miscellaneous fees, you'll see that is the same as FY22 and 23. And if that is really recruitment membership and dues, so that's what that $36,000 means. So here are some details of our contracts, our RU Pathways program. It's the same as FY22 and 23. The next three, LinkedIn, Interview Now, and Workplace, those are all as part of our comprehensive plan for advertising. You'll see the variance for Interview Now, that's $500, and that is the difference between FY22. It was just like a one-time processing fee that because we have a 2-year contract, we only had to pay it in FY22 and will not have to pay it in FY23. And then Kelly Services, that is part of our NIU LEAP program. The LEAP program, of course, is the Licensed Educator Accelerated Program, and that brings our variance to $124,500. What we are requesting for the next year, as one of our heavy lifts for the Equity Department is recruitment, and we are asking for a $20,000 increase in that because we advertise and recruit for all positions in the district, and so that's where you'll see our rationale is that our department is new, and we are responsible for recruiting for the entire district. And we will need to invest heavily in local media and digital advertising to help ensure we are building a continuous pipeline of talent for the organization. And we are asking for this large increase for our advertising budget as part of our comprehensive recruitment plan. And then our second ask is an executive assistant. Currently, our department does not have one. And so it's been kind of all hands on deck as far as doing a lot of those administrative and business support. And those are our two asks for next year, which that will be a total of $84,000 to $64,000 is benefits and salary. our return on investment to recruit, retain diverse quality staff workforce, reduce time to fill vacant positions, and increase the number of student and clinical students placed with RPS, and increase the number of pathways and opportunities for staff to earn educator's license and move into a certified position. Also to increase in RPS graduates applying for the RU Pathway program. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Mr. Siegel.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
On slide 53, your new fiscal year 23 requests.
Yes, sir.
The increase in the advertising budget is, you feel like that's an adequate number?
We hope so.
We hope so.
We're trying. We're being reasonable, if you will. We have, if you go back, you'll see the ones that we have now have been pretty successful. The $20,000 really is because we're using print as well as digital media, and that advertisement is really the digital media that's a lot more expensive. So we believe that it should be adequate for next year, and then once we get to next year, we'll assess it and then see what we'll need for FY24.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes, in total, how many recruiters do we have for, I was trying to go back.
For the entire district?
Correct.
All right. Small but mighty. Here we go. Add one more person. So we are a total of 5 people, and I'm actively also part of that as well.
Right, but we have talent acquisition, right? We under HR, which we have a coordinator, and then we have 3 specialists. So for the entire district, how many recruiters do we have?
But they don't
do recruiting.
They do the job offers and placements and then the new hire appointments.
The actual people who do the recruiting, going to the job fairs, going out, and all of that, that is 5 of us.
So we have individuals with titles of recruiters but don't recruit? What?
Well, talent acquisition is what they call it, and you're saying they don't recruit.
Correct.
Okay, so
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so let's go back. How many talent? Okay, I understand that. I'm just asking for information.
We have 1 talent acquisition coordinator and 3 talent acquisition specialists.
And they pretty much just make the offers.
They do the offers, the placements, and then the new hire appointments.
Okay. I'm going to pin that for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I'm with you on that. I was just like, well, we have this department here, and then we have recruiters, and it seems to me there should be some sort of marriage, or at least,
So the departments are actually geographically located in the same office complex. We did that intentionally. So remember, prior to having Dr. Brunson's department, this all was housed in the human resources team, and now these 2 teams collaborate very closely together and certainly partner to do the work. But we felt it was extremely important as we added a chief of equity, diversity, and inclusion that the recruiting work that is so important to having a high quality and diverse workforce be under the leadership of that team in close partnership with human resources.
Ms. Pearson, did you have other questions?
Yes, Mr. Zediker, can I request a copy of the talent acquisition job description as well? Thank you.
Can you speak to the recruitment memberships and dues that that are in there? What kind of?
So one of the things that, well, several of the things that we do as part of recruitment is being part of professional memberships. It really is kind of all encompassing. I'm trying to break it down a little easier. So I'm trying to kind of explain it in a way. When we go out to recruit physically recruit to go somewhere, oftentimes we pay for that. So part of that is being part of a network to utilize services to recruit, we have to pay fees for that. And so that's what that is part of. It just depends on what the name of what we're utilizing. I know I'm not making sense with that, but it just, because it's pretty broad, it's, I don't know, Matt, it's kind of, I'm just trying to explain it. It's
so
very
if you have
broad.
A job fair somewhere.
Yeah, it's like a job fair.
And you pay to be there,
yes.
That's one thing. But to be a membership or a dues intimates to me a much larger scope. So is this?
So it's membership, and it's all encompassing. It could be membership, it could be dues, it could be a fee. It just depends on what we're utilizing. Yeah.
And then did we not have the LEAP program this year, the NIU?
We do.
So why is there this sudden need for subs then we didn't have any last year? How was that?
Well, we didn't have the program last year.
Okay. I just asked you if we had it last year. I couldn't remember.
No, it was just approved at the last board meeting.
Thank you for that. And so these are subs for teachers who are in this program? The LEAP, I thought, was like paras and...
Right, correct.
So we're paying for, because they're going to school during the day, and we're paying for subs for their jobs while they're doing that? I'm not a little bit of clarity there.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, Matt.
I can jump in.
Yeah, kind of
so
explain how it works.
The sub-budget is part of the LEAP program, is that in order for them to student teach,
right,
we will allow them to student teach and give the principals the opportunity to have subs to fill in for paraprofessionals, parent liaisons. So we're budgeting potential subs. So the Kelly Services title on that budget may not be fully appropriate because we don't sub out our parent liaisons through Kelly Services, but our paraprofessionals we do. So we're budgeting in the event that we can fill those roles for the semester that those individuals are student teaching.
So it's not looking like, I don't know when to say double dipping.
I'm still not understanding. I apologize.
Okay, so people have full-time jobs, and we are allowing them to have we are paying to give them a substitute while they do their full-time job so that we can attract a high-quality and diverse workforce who are in non-certified positions as they get their degree. That's this NIU LEAP program that we just approved. So you take a parent liaison who is working really well with students, that person has a day job and a service that needs to be provided. We can't just let them student teach without filling that role for the building principal. So what we budget for is so that at no cost to this individual, he or she can student teach, still obtain an income, because otherwise you are not going to get adults who need to feed their families to step away and student teach for free. So this allows us to cover those costs.
Right, and their responsibility is once they finish, they will work for,
My misunderstanding is is that money going to the person because they're student teaching and they're still getting paid, or is that money going to the sub?
It goes to the
filling that position.
It goes to the sub that's filling a position.
Okay.
Right.
Because they keep their salary, and that's not captured in here because
no.
Just the sub piece is. All right. I'd be curious at some point to see how much of the recruiting is done in person, as you alluded to.
It is. Even with the LEAP program, one of the things that was unique about the LEAP program, we did a lot of that. It was the principals, they recommended people. Then Jason Pope went to speak to each and every one of them to see if they wanted to be part of the program. And our first cohort starts on the 14th. And just to give a little bit of information is that currently we have 13 female and 3 male, 5 of which are African American, 1 Hispanic, 7 white females, and then 3 white men. And then the new, who would be the additional, there are 4 female, 3 male, there are 1 African American woman, 2 African American men, and 3 white females. So just to really think about how many of our minority teachers.
Talking general district hiring, going to universities,
and
going to,
absolutely,
not just within our scope. And so
yes, we do.
You guys are still traveling to all these places. And the reason I ask you that question is because then you would have to have a budget for travel.
We have that.
Is that part of? That's not purchase services or?
No, that's just part of. I don't.
Where
have
is that in the budget? That's my question.
But that's purchase services. Yep. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, that is purchase services. I know that, hold on, let me go back. Purchase services right there where it says 500,000. Yep, that's why that number is so large, because that's travel, hotels, if we drive.
And that's why there's the variance as well?
Correct.
Or is it for other items, other purchase services?
No, that's part of that, and then supplies is different.
The big add there is going to be the substitute cost, the $125,000. Yep. That's what's really driving the number up to the 140.
Purchase services is different than.
Well, if it's
the Kelly services, they're listed different in here.
Yeah, purchase service isn't necessarily a contract. It's a concept of we're buying a service from somebody else. So if we're paying an outside company for substitutes or something along those lines, it actually gets qualified in the 300 object codes as a purchase service for us. So that would be the biggest part of the 140,000 is 125,000 for subs that's shown down below on the details of the contracts.
Thank you. Ms. Pearson.
Isn't that half person included in this piece as well?
Our new person that we hired, they would be in salaries and benefits.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
They're already there. They're not. Right. They're not part of your ask for the additional.
They are not. We had someone. She was a half-time personnel. She is now in IT services, and so we made that half-time person to be a full-time person. And so that's the difference, the variance with the salaries and benefits.
Ms. Pearson.
So, can you, or Mr. Zedeker, what does the student teacher actually look like, and who are they working with? How does that all come into play?
What are you talking about for the LEAP program, or what? I'm not understanding the question.
Okay, so the student teacher. Period. Like, who are they working? Who's overseeing the student teachers? Is what I'm asking.
It would be
in the schools.
In the schools, it would be whatever school they're assigned to, and then whoever the teacher that they're assigned to work under.
So, is there any additional compensation for the teachers that the student teachers are working under, taking on that additional role? And why not?
No.
Depending on the university, as we work with, like, say, NIU, they get offered tuition waivers to take graduate credits as a form of compensation. So they can either choose to elect to have those or not, but they do not get compensated for taking student teachers.
Right.
Our MTLs get a stipend, though. We have a multi-classroom leader who gets a student teacher in their classroom, and they do get a stipend for doing that, right, Dr. Jarrett?
Yes, but they have other duties as well, and not every aspiring teacher is a student teacher.
Okay.
Okay, I'll come back at another time with additional questions, just for clarity.
All right. I don't see any other lights. Thank you.
All right. All right, thank you.
Mr. Phillips, without Mr. Rollins here, I would ask you if there are any follow-ups from your committee.
Good evening. No, there's no follow-ups for the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the long walk. We probably need to have one little mic back there for you guys, right? All right. right, so we're on to consent portion of our meeting, which includes item previewed by the board committee chairs during the committee of the whole. Our consent items from the Performance and Monitoring Committee are payroll, accounts payable, purchase orders, monthly cash and investments from December 2021, air travel, financial results from December 2021, construction pay request log, the RFP 2022 collection agency services, Teledoc renewal with My Strength complete, architectural and engineering service contract with Bradley and Bradley Architects, as well as the consent items from the Governance Committee, the meeting minutes from the special board meeting of 1/11/22, contract purchase orders, workers' compensation settlement agreement for TE, workers' compensation settlement agreement for SS, and the Freedom of Information log. Is there a motion and second to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any items that board members wish to pull for separate consideration? Mr. Siegel?
6I.
Okay. Anyone else? Will the coordinator please call the roll on items not pulled?
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson? The motion passes with 4 yeses, 1 absent from the vote, and 2 absent.
I'll now take a motion and a second for item 6I, the Teledoc renewal and My Strength complete.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, Mr. Siegel.
Just want to reiterate, this is an opportunity for people to take advantage of a practical access to mental health care services that'll be available anytime, super economically. Please take advantage of it.
All right, and Jarawa, you talked about this in yours, so I think that we've heard a lot of support for supporting the mental health of our staff, and we need to make sure to support the mental health of our students as well. And all right, so could you please call the roll on item 6I?
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Abstain?
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 1 abstain, 2 absent.
All right. We're now at the closed session consent agenda, which includes item 8A, the HR organizational report and addendum, and the following disciplines. 44-43 will be expelled for the remainder of the 2021-22 school year. 44-44 will be expelled for the remainder of the 2021-22 school year through the entire 22-23 school year. 44-45 will be expelled for the remainder of the 2021-22 school year through the first semester of the 22-23 school year. 44-46 will be expelled for the remainder of the 21-22 school year through the first semester of the 22-23 school year. 44-47 will be expelled for the remainder of the 21-22 school year through the first semester of the 22-23 school year. 44-48 will be expelled for the remainder of the 21-22 school year through the first semester of the 22-23 school year. 44-49, the expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon an expulsion and abeyance agreement for the remainder of the 21-22 school year. It also includes the closed session for student discipline for the EIAs, which includes the following cases: 8399, 8400, 8401, 8402, 8403, 8404, 8405, 8406, 8408, 8410, 8411, 8412, 8413, 8414, 8415, 8416, 8417, 8418, and 8419. Is there a motion and a second to approve the closed session consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any closed session items that board members wish to have pulled? Ms. Pearson.
Yes, 9 B, C, D, and F.
B, C, D, and F. Well, I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of the closed session consent items not pulled.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 absent.
And Ms. Pearson, it'll be okay if I take these as a group, or do you need to vote on each separately?
A group is fine, thank you.
You bet. So I'll take a motion in a second for closed session items for student discipline 9B 4444, C 4445, D 4446, and F 4448.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And there's no opportunity for discussion, so I'll have the coordinator call the roll on those 4.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
No.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 1 no, 2 absent.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or agenda recommendations by board members? Any additional follow-up that we have from the open meeting? I think there was just the benefits one, correct? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. We are adjourned at 8:45.